Hello, my name is Brendon Irvine and I work with the Adventist Development and Relief Agency based in the Asia Regional Office in Thailand. And we've had some good linkages with the Royal Jersey Agricultural and Horticultural Society in relation to a dairy for development project in Nepal over the last couple of years. What I'd like to share with you is about the potential development of a stabilised Jersey Bos Indicus cross for tropical and subtropical conditions. Possibly we could term that the Jersey Whale. There are several issues of pure Jerseys in tropical and subtropical conditions. Despite the significant advantages of introducing pure Jerseys in tropical and subtropical countries for milk production improvement, there are still several drawbacks. Although the Jersey breed is the most heat tolerant of all the Bos Taurus or European origin dairy breeds, it still suffers heat stress in hot and humid conditions that depresses appetite and hence milk production. This is because it does not have the density or size of sweat glands in the skin that zebu or Bos Indicus cattle have that enable them to sweat sufficiently to cool the body. These conditions are quite prevalent in tropical and subtropical countries for at least a large portion of the year and would hence affect production ability of pure Jerseys. The other key issue is that the Jersey breed is not genetically tick resistant to the cattle ticks that are prevalent in tropical and subtropical countries, unlike the zebu or Bos Indicus cattle that are naturally tick resistant. These tick infestations also cause stress and has the potential to introduce parasite-borne diseases, both which depress milk production and lead to animal health and management issues, particularly for the smallholder dairy farmer. These disadvantages are largely overcome if the Jersey breed is used in a crossbreeding programs to upgrade local cattle, generally zebu or Bos Indicus cattle in tropical and subtropical areas, to have improved milk production while retaining the heat tolerance and tick resistance that comes from the zebu cattle. However, in order to retain the heat tolerance and tick resistance characteristics of the zebu cattle, it's important not to go over 5/8 Jersey genetics in the crossbred animals. This limitation was established by research conducted by the Australian Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, or CSIRO, in extensive crossbreeding research and testing from the mid-1950s to the early 1980s in tropical and subtropical areas of Australia, using Jersey and Sahiwal and Red Sydney crosses. The Sahiwal and Red Sydney are both Bos Indicus dairy breeds from Pakistan and India. This eventually produced a stabilised Jersey Sahiwal crossbred that was called by CSIRO the Australian Milking Zebu, or AMZ. And there's a link below that shows a video of the history of the development of the Australian Milking Zebu, or AMZ. The challenges with progressive crossbreeding or upgrading with Jersey bulls used continuously in a crossbreeding program is that the first cross, which is Jersey by local zebu, 50% Jersey, 50% zebu, has good heat tolerance and tick resistance and improved milk production over the zebu cattle alone. The second cross, Jersey times the first cross, would give 75% Jersey, 25% zebu genetics. It further improves milk production, but there's less tick resistance and heat tolerance. So it's no longer a fully easy care animal. The third cross of Jersey times the second cross would give us 87.5% Jersey and 12.5% zebu. Really starts to lose heat tolerance and has tick infestation problems. So it's no longer a robust, easy care animal for the smallholder farmer. As CSIRO in Australia has established, the optimal animal is a stabilised 5/8 Jersey or 62.5% Jersey and 3/8 Zebu, which is basically a first cross times a second cross as per above, which balances a good level of milk production from the Jersey genetics while retaining the heat and humidity tolerance and tick resistance of the Zebu genetics. This is just a quick background showing you how the AMZ was developed. At the time, Jersey production capacity from Jersey cows was in that 3.5 to 4,600 litre per lactation. And the Sahiwal genetics that Australia obtained from Pakistan was around that 2,000 litre per lactation genetics. The Jersey, of course, not tick resistant, whereas the Sahiwal was tick resistant. The AMZ breed development was conducted from about 1955 through to the early 1980s, and so it was Sahiwal and Sindhi males crossed with Jersey females, and the F1 or the first cross. Then the females were milked for at least one lactation, and then the best were selected, and they were crossed again with a Jersey to get a 3/4 Jersey, and then in F3 they were crossed back to the 50% Jersey, 50% Sahiwal, which then was stabilised. So that was the approach that was taken. And then there was a very rigorous testing and selection process, particularly on the bull side. The bull calves were selected from the best performing cows, up to 40 bulls at a time per generation. They were put into hot room testing environments with high temperature, high humidity. From that, the best 12 performing in the hot room in terms of ability to sweat. They were selected and then put into tick resistant tests where 20,000 tick larvae were put on the animals, and the ones with the best tick resistance were selected. That was 7 out of the 12. And then they were testing on semen quality, and the best 6 out of the 7 were selected and used then as selected bulls for the next generation. So by the mid-1970s, there was a stabilised Australian milking Zebu, 5/8 Jersey, 3/8 Sahiwal, that was heat tolerant, tick resistant, good milk production average of about 3,500 litres, given the genetic background of the Jersey and the Sahiwal at that time. And some of the elite animals were performing up to 4,600 litres per lactation. And here's just a photo of a proven progeny tested AMZ bull that was used for semen collection in that latter half of the 1970s and the early 1980s. Unfortunately, the AMZ had a difficult history once it was released to commercial industry. It was released to the commercial dairy industry in the tropical and subtropical areas in Australia in the 1970s, from the early 1970s through to the early 1990s, and it was used extensively. The CSIRO retained control of the breeding nucleus of elite animals and bulls that were progeny tested and proven up until the early 1990s. And then they were on-sold by government-controlled CSIRO to a commercial artificial breeding company. That breeding company, of course, took all the elite animals, the elite females, the elite bulls, and any semen and embryos that had been collected at that stage. And in the early 1990s, they exported everything to Mexico, and there was nothing retained in Australia. They did that for commercial reasons. Unfortunately, in Mexico, it wasn't well managed, and it basically dissipated there, and there's no systematic breeding or maintenance. It basically died out in Australia and in Mexico, and unfortunately was lost globally. There's an opportunity to recreate a suitable stabilised Jersey Bos Indicus cross for tropical and subtropical conditions. Both Jersey genetics and the genetics of Bos Indicus dairy breeds have improved very significantly since the 1950s to 1970s, when the AMZ was first developed. In addition, artificial breeding technology has also very significantly progressed since the 1970s. We're very routinely using superovulation and embryo transfer, embryo freezing for being able to export embryos, and there's also cattle in vitro oocyte maturation, fertilisation and embryo production, and more recently has been developed juvenile female calf oocyte collection and in vitro embryo production from those oocytes to really shorten generation on the female side. It effectively can be down to 1 year generation interval on the female side in a technique called GIVIT. We've also had the emergence of genomics, DNA testing to identify key markers for key milk and other production characteristics that enables very early selection of juveniles. And then, of course, is the emergence of the use of sex semen. So there's a lot of artificial breeding technology that has emerged that could really enable us to quite rapidly recreate a stabilised Jersey Bos Indicus cross, much more rapidly than the 20 years needed for the Australian milking zebu, and potentially within a 6 to 8 year period with the use of in vitro embryo production techniques, GIVIT, and genomics. So here's just some photos of some quality Jersey cows, good conformation, good production, Jersey bull, proven sires, and just the key characteristics of Jersey cattle that really make them suitable for this process. They're a temperate Bos Taurus dairy breed. They are the best heat tolerant of all the European or Bos Taurus breeds, but they're not tick resistant. The other advantage is they're a medium size animal, adult cows typically in the 400 to 450 kilogram range, which makes it suitable for crossing in the medium to smaller size Bos Indicus population, cattle population. Very good milk production. In the 1970s, it was around that 3,000 to 5,000 litre per lactation, but elite animals these days is from 7,000 to 9,500 litre per lactation, with excellent milk solid contents of greater than 5% fat and greater than 4% protein. Here's a picture of a Sahiwal cow. It's one of the best Bos Indicus or zebu dairy breeds in terms of production. And there's a bull. And the characteristics of the Sahiwal cattle is that they are an indigenous dairy breed from northwest India and Pakistan. They have natural genetic heat tolerance characteristics and also genetically tick resistant. They're a medium size of that 350 to 375 for adult cow weight, good milk production and lactation duration of 9 to 10 months. In the 1970s, they were typically producing in that 1,500 to 2,000 litre per lactation range, but now elite animals at the National Dairy Research Institute in India, NDRI, they're producing in the range of 3,500 to 4,500 litres per lactation, with generally over 5% fat content. So if we're wanting to revive a stabilised Jersey Sahiwal cross, one option would be to use a Sahiwal cow and cross with a Jersey bull, or the other option would be to use high-producing Jersey cows and to cross with a proven Sahiwal bull with dam production of over 4,000 litre per lactation. So looking at options for reviving and recreating a stabilised Jersey Sahiwal cross. Probably the easiest option is going to be using proven Jersey bulls in that 7,500 to 9,000 litre per lactation range with identified elite Sahiwal cows out of India in that 3,500 to 4,500 litre lactation range to get a first cross or an F1 producing in the range of about 5,500 litres per lactation. Then to produce the F2 or the 75% Jersey would cross the F1 with another proven elite Jersey bull. That could get an F2, which should be 75% Jersey, 25% Sahiwal, should be able to produce around that 6,500 litre per lactation range. And then to create the F3 or the 5/8 Jersey, 3/8 Sahiwal, we would then cross the F2 back cross to the F1. And then we test for tick resistance and heat tolerance and select the best F3 animals for on-breeding. And they would be then bred within each other, within that population pool of F3s, and to create F4s, which should be that stabilised 5/8 Jersey, 3/8 Sahiwal, which perhaps we can term the Jersey Wal, and then select the best F4 for on-breeding and for semen widespread reuse and embryo production. We would need to use advanced breeding technology, juvenile in vitro embryo production techniques, multiple ovulation embryo transfer techniques, genomics for very young animal selection, for oocyte collection and selection of young bulls to go into AI programs, semen collection programs, and the use of sex semen. All of this should be able to shorten generation interval to quickly produce a stabilised Jersey Sahiwal breed within 4 generations. This is possible within around a 6 to 8 year period with proven production capacity in a high temperature, humidity and high tick pressure environment. Production should stabilise out at around 6,000 litres per lactation with greater than 5% fat and greater than 4% protein content in the milk, while maintaining a minimum of that 37.5% or 3/8 Bos Indicus genetics to keep the high level of heat tolerance and disease resistance. So if we aim for this modern, revived modern Jersey Wal, this is what we should be looking at in terms of production characteristics. And as I shared earlier, the key tools to speed up this creation of a stabilised Jersey Sahiwal breed is to shorten generation interval by using juvenile in vitro embryo production and transfer, or JIVIT techniques. And this means that we collect immature oocytes from the ovaries of 1 to 3 month old female calves. This can be done either through ultrasound-guided needle aspiration of oocyte follicles on ovaries that have been stimulated with hormones, or through mini surgery techniques to identify and find the ovary and then suck out the oocytes from the ovarian follicles. These oocytes can then be put into in vitro maturation culture and to create the equivalent of an ovulated oocyte, and then put into in vitro fertilization. And post in vitro fertilization, embryo culture to day 6 blastocyst embryo stage, which can then be transferred into adult female surrogate cows to then carry the embryo to term. The female side generation interval can be shortened to as short as 12 months, 3 months of age for the female calf that is providing the oocytes as oocyte donors, plus then the 9 month of pregnancy for the embryo that is produced. And that's much shorter than the 24 to 36 months in a natural breeding cycle on the female side. So there's potential to get 4 generations in 4 years rather than 8 to 10 years, as would be with natural breeding. Here's a schematic just to show a generation interval in cattle for jivet if oocytes were collected at 6 months of age. But we know from research and proven technology that we can collect as young as 1 month and generally at 3 months of age. So instead of having a 15 month generation interval as in this schematic, we can go as low as 12 months. Genomics is also really important to use in assessment of key production genetic markers for animals at a very young age by DNA testing, so that we can select the elite animals to enter into the jivet program for the female calves, and then also in selecting young age bulls to enter into the semen collection stage. This intensifies selection to narrow down the number of males going into the AI progeny testing program and intensifies selection of females for MOAT or jivet programs. For cattle, there's really good genomic markers for milk production characteristics and other production characteristics. So if we look at the rates of genetic gain, if we use the blue line, which is artificial insemination, natural breeding, plus multiple ovulation embryo transfer, plus jivet, which is juvenile in vitro embryo production techniques, you can see that the rate of genetic gain is much higher. If you look at the vertical axis on the graph, especially as we move forward compared to just AI natural mating, etc. So using jivet, using genomic selection, etc., gives us the fastest rate of genetic gain. But we have to be careful not to go too far in the inbreeding, and that requires ensuring that the genetic material used in the jivet program is of a very diverse variety background. So potential site for initial Jersey whale development. The best Jersey whale, Sahiwal genetics for one side of the breed, parental material for the breed, are available in India. India has the best Sahiwal genetics. And the Bharatiya Agro Industry Foundation, or BAIF, which is based near Pune in India, also has very strong experience in dairy cattle artificial breeding. They have a large AI centre and bull mother farm, and their AI centre produces 12 million doses of semen a year, including sex semen technology. And they have AI technicians that work with over 3.7 million smallholder cattle farmers for doing AI. They also do ultrasound-guided oocyte pickup aspiration from ovarian follicles, and they then put those oocytes into in vitro embryo production techniques, and they're doing that on a weekly basis in the embryology laboratory, particularly for oocyte collection from their elite cows to produce future bulls for their AI centre. So they have very strong technical capacity. BAIF are keen to partner on this endeavour to develop stabilised Jersey whale and then produce Jersey whale semen embryos to export to interesting countries in the tropical and subtropical regions to enable establishment of more nucleus herds for further multiplication and use within the commercial industries in tropical and subtropical countries. In addition, the technical and scientific support cost structures are much more affordable in India than in other Western countries that have established in vitro embryo production labs and capacities. So the signs are good. We can potentially work with this in India, with then export into other countries in Asia and Africa and potentially Latin America for establishment of more nucleus herds of Jersey wild for then selection in local conditions. So this is what I'd like to just share with you as the potential for developing a suitable stabilised crossbreed that can really have a place in the dairy industry in tropical and subtropical countries, that has a very strong Jersey component and also a useful Sahiwal component. Thank you very much.